Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, where you learn how to extract your business and personal deep wealth. I'm your host, Jeffrey Feldberg. This podcast is brought to you by Deep Wealth and the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience. When it comes to your business deep wealth, your exit or liquidity event is the most important financial decision of your life. But unfortunately, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. Think about all that time and your hard-earned money wasted. Of the quote-unquote successful liquidity events, most business owners leave 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it. I should know. I said no to a seven-figure offer and yes to mastering the art and the science of a liquidity event. 2 years later, I said yes to a different buyer with a 9-figure deal. Are you thinking about an exit or liquidity event? Don't become a statistic and make the fatal mistake of believing the skills that built your business are the same ones to sell it. After all, how can you master something you've never done before? Let the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience and the 9-step roadmap of preparation help you capture the best deal instead of any deal. At the end of this episode, take a moment and hear from business owners like you who went through the Deep Wealth Experience. Dan Rogers never expected to go from rolling burritos to becoming the CEO of his own company, Point-to-Point Transportation. In defying the odds and always looking to challenge the status quo, Dan helped to grow a quick-serve restaurant chain, tripled annual sales from an existing book of business, and pivoted his own company to navigate tremendous growth, the 2008 recession, and being listed for 7 consecutive years of Inc.'s 5,000 listings. Dan is committed to advising companies on how to be a sales sidekick, cultivating value for both their clients and employees. Dan's passion is coaching individuals so that they can clarify their vision, construct a plan, overcome obstacles, and reach their goals. In the Sales Sidekick Bootcamp, he shares the strategies and tools you can use to achieve those goals. Dan's focus with Sales Sidekick is to help clients' well-being, build confidence, and inspire them to succeed. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, and we have a friend of the community who is back, a fellow business owner, podcaster, someone who is a creator, all-around terrific guy, an incredible story. We'll have it in the show notes for the original interview, and he's here to keep us updated on how he can, well, I'm going to ask some rhetorical questions to our listeners. Do you want to scale your business? Do you want to grow maybe 10x what your revenues and profits are? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Dan, welcome back to the Deep Wealth Podcast. An absolute pleasure. And Dan, since you were last on the podcast, our community, we've just been blessed. It's been growing. So for all of our new members, what's the story behind the story with you, Dan? What got you to where you are today?
I dropped out of college to roll burritos is the secret of my success. That was the best decision that I made. That was the decision that led to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Truth is stranger than fiction. And again, for the origin story, we'll have it in the show notes for podcast. But you've done some amazing things from rolling burritos to your business to the pandemic to here you are. I know after we recorded the last podcast, offline, you and I were talking and we said, wow, there's just so much here. This really deserves an episode in and of itself. So let's pick up where we left off, and why don't you share with our listeners what's been going on in terms of, I know you're coaching and you have systems and you're helping business owners scale and grow. I mean, who doesn't want that? So what have you been doing on that side, Dan? Fill us in.
Yeah. So what I realized when COVID gave us that pause to sort of reflect, and I reached out to just try to be helpful because I was bored, I found out that my past experience could be helpful. And so we just went and found people that looked a lot like we did 20 years ago and said, hey, I'm fairly certain I can compress time because I got a 20-year head start on you and I've already made all the bad decisions and we're fortunate to survive them. So in trying to explain that, there was a fair bit of documentation and systems and process because we couldn't run the businesses that we had without it. But so much of it was baked into onboarding and everything else. So to try to communicate it to somebody who was truly external, who has their own entity, we're very grateful. There are too many to count, but at this point, I would say dozens of other business owners that were gracious enough to learn with us as we were trying to figure out how to articulate this stuff in ways that was accessible to somebody who isn't on our payroll, who isn't completely already inside of our ecosystem. So that was highly informative and very fortunate that we got to do that with, like I said, folks that were gracious and generous enough to sort of learn with us.
That's amazing because you've taken your own experience and now your systems, your strategy, you're applying it to other businesses. So I'm wondering, now that you've left your own universe and you're working with other businesses, are you seeing some common themes or trends? And if you are, what's the biggest mistake that you're seeing most business owners are making that you're able to come in and fix quickly, the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would throw out there, and a little bit of this is to shock folks, but I'm not shocked. I'm not saying it. It's really more just to get them to pause, to get them to think for a second. So, and I've suffered all of these things I'm going to point out are things that I suffered myself. And if I'm not careful, I do them still today. So we all suffer from special snowflake syndrome. There's only one business model. There's only one. Sell it for more than you bought it for. That's the business model. That's the business model. And I actually point to point, and our barbell is the business model. And the barbell itself is the company. And the upper P on our barbell is the people that, the lower P on the barbell is the people that we pay. And that is the only business model that there is. There's only one. And because I'm a systems guy, it's all of the things that you think make you special are not, they are incredibly valuable to the marketplace, but the marketplace doesn't care. If you can just accept that you're the same as every other business, you can be wildly successful. Most of us are so, and again, suffering, I have to be careful not to suffer from this myself. I did in my past, thinking that what we do is somehow special or different. It's like, no, it's just another system.
Okay, Dan. So some humbling words for us all. And let me ask you this. When we check our egos at the door and we acknowledge, we admit, we accept, okay, you know, really what we're doing isn't that special, not that much different than anyone else. What happens next? Once we've accepted that, once we recognize this, then what?
So what I would say is at that point, then we can say, okay, in that lens, maybe what I'll do is just for a moment is rather than think about it as a business, I'll think about it as a system.
Okay.
System is a word that we've all heard, but if you look up systems dynamics or if you get in on that, there's a whole field of study in that. And we know quite a bit about systems. It's different than business. At a distance, if you squint your eyes, they look similar. But when you get in on how they work and how they're organized, they're wildly different. And so that would be the first thing is the benefit of saying, I'm like every other, there is only one business model, is it makes it very easy then to take a systems approach to how would I design my business if I viewed it as a system first and a business second.
Okay. So systems, and more systems, that's our savings grace. That's what's going to help us scale and get out there. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. And what I would say is what I think the current challenge is that every business, at least in the West, has is corporation, right? They're corporations. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but we'll just see. It's a little bit of a quiz. Okay. So the root of corporation is corpus, right? So what's a corpus?
What's a corpus?
It's a body.
Okay.
It's a body. So I'm going to just set that aside. It's a body. Okay. Now, can I just quickly review the 4 levels of systems in the world of systems?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. So in ascending order, the most simple system is a mechanistic system.
Okay.
So the function of the system is fixed. There's no choice. And the parts inside of it, the vital essential parts inside of it have no choice.
Okay.
So it's a machine, a clock, a wristwatch, right? That's a mechanistic system. The next level of complexity, the system has choice, but the parts have no choice. Okay. That's called an organism or a biological system. And that you can grade these out inside of each one of these levels, but we want to keep it simple. So that's an organism. If we go up one level higher and say system has choice and essential vital parts have choice, we have a societal system, right? And then if you're following along, you might know what the 4th option would be is system has no choice, but the essential parts have choice. That would be an ecological system. And so those are the 4 levels. Okay. And respectfully, what I would say is most businesses, I've supported the Fortune 1000 for 30 years. That's what my career is. Publicly traded companies in the United States are designed as organisms, biological systems, and run like mechanistic systems. And they're misdiagnosed. They're societal systems. Because when you have a body is a body, it's not bodies, it's a body. And what I did not know the last time we talked, Jeffrey, I couldn't articulate it that way, and I certainly didn't know it when I started doing all this 25 years ago, is I intuitively designed my business as a societal system. So what we're doing with the Sales Sidekick effort and our movement to try to redeem work is we are attempting to demonstrate and learn with the community of what an organization would look like and how it would function within the laws and for profit and all that if it had a societal system design. Now, I've got about a 20-year head start on the rest of the community, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Does that make sense?
I'm hearing you on that, and I know that some of the listeners are saying, okay, Dan, yeah, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Let me put it together, though. Can you give us an example? Can you illustrate where it was with your system now that you're putting in place, where it went to and the results, what happened?
Yeah. So let me speak to maybe like how a body is being run like a machine.
Okay.
So your body, like a heart doesn't say, well, I got to optimize my heart. It doesn't say, how do I get more? I mean, it just trusts that it's going to get the oxygen it needs and that the CO2 is going to get dealt with and it'll get the blood and all that.
Sure.
But when we get inside of a corporation, I have a customer service problem. How do we optimize? How do we go to scale? How do we do all these things? Like, so it's the violation of optimizing of parts in addition to potentially not designed it as the right system. That's why we have all these challenges in the workplace. So what it starts to look like is, I think when you arrange a business as a system and as a societal system, you end up with 3 core processes. You could end up with more if you want to make it more complex. You could certainly call them whatever you wanted. But the function and a purpose of a societal system, there's only one purpose and a function, is to develop community. As you ascend the levels of systems, each lower level, those requirements become a table stake. They become the requirements, not the objectives. The lower level objectives become the requirements of the next level up. So a biological system, its purpose is to survive, is to live. So a societal system as a requirement has to live.
Sure.
That's why I can only work with folks that have a stable economic platform. If you haven't figured out survival, there's other people that can help you. I'm not your guy. But where we can be helpful is if you've got that, then we can say, how do we step up to that next level and how do we start developing community? And it looks wildly different than growing revenue and all that other stuff. What happens, and the language is terrifying to people on some levels, but it's just the only language we have, is that you go out into the community that you're serving. And how you develop them is for fun and for free, no strings attached. You give away stuff for free. And it's not like Starbucks gift cards and stuff like that. You know the community well enough that you're helping them develop in a way that they want to be developed. And then when you're good enough at it, they say, holy smokes, I've got to pay you for it. And at that point, we get to the second core process. First process is core community development, is then customer journey. And because there's only one business model, there's only 4 customers in every societal system: the providers, the employees, the customers, and the clients. So then, and all 4 of those sub-processes look very much the same, except because we're not obsessed with optimizing parts. We're obsessed with coordinating interactions. And is that the only difference between those 4 sub-processes is that they are customized to honor each one of those 4 different perspectives of the customer. But if you look at a distance, those 4 customer journeys are almost identical. They're just slightly different because how you onboard a provider looks different than how you onboard an employee, right? But the same care and consideration that you would with an employee is the same care and consideration that we take with a provider. It looks wildly different. People that we look to, quote unquote, be our providers, they don't understand why we're so obsessed with trying to make them money.
And so, Dan, let me ask you this, and I don't want to oversimplify, and please step in if you feel I'm doing that. Really, what I'm hearing you say, to me, resonates because as business owners, if you go back to the beginning of time, as a business owner, why are we on this planet? We're on this planet to find a painful problem and be world-class at solving that problem.
Absolutely.
And only when we're looking after our clients, the community, society at large, when we help enough people get to their goal, then we become successful and we can get our goals. How am I doing on that?
Absolutely. And I probably said this last time, and I should probably start with this as a standard just acknowledgement. I am unaware, and I don't say this lightheartedly, I do not know of any single individual person's story where they've been successful honorably that hasn't done precisely what I'm talking about. So everyone understands this. What happens is because we have the wrong system design, when we get inside of a corporation, we can't execute. So even when, because I've had passionate conversations, borderline arguments with other business owners who are like, well, that's what I do. And I'm like, no, it isn't. And they tell me about some great salesperson they have that has this same approach. And I'm like, do all your other salespeople do it? Does their job description say they're supposed to do it? No, that person is showing up as an individually fantastically, but your system isn't designed to say this is how we show up and this is how we interact. But yes, everything that you're saying is right on the money. We might have just been incredibly fortunate, or people just took pity on us. But that first round of folks that we had, I think they were like, Dan doesn't really, he can't articulate what he's saying, but it so speaks to my code DNA that I want it to be true. And because I have an economic platform that I can count on, I'm willing to test to see how this works, right? Because that it is, in fact, it's, if you look at what has made, I'm assuming folks listening to your podcast are honorably successful. If you were honorably successful, look at what you really did. And then if you want to catch yourself a little short, then look at how you designed your system. And you'll be like, I didn't ask people to be the way I was. I'm not asking people to be the way I was. I'm designing it the way MBA school tells me design sales and marketing or finance or whatever the silly job is.
So Dan, let me ask you this, because I remember from our last conversation and in the system, you've shared it here again. Yeah. What effectively you're saying is, hey, do whatever it takes to make sure your customers are successful, that they're making money, that they're winning. And I know in your company, you empowered everyone in the company to do whatever it takes, get it done first, tell me about it afterwards, and don't worry about what it costs.
Yeah, so we have their get out of jail card has been revised since I was on your show. This is their get out of jail card. Literally, when we do a team meeting, when we do sort of annual kickoff, and not on the quarterly stuff, but when we're having a big meeting and reminding everybody, it's, look, there's 3 steps to the process. Be opinionated in writing or audio, but capture what you think and why. Then, because we're a systems company, the second step is put it in sequence. Based on your opinion, where are we in the sequence? Third, tell the truth. That's it. Be a truth teller. And if you can if you have that either documented or you have audio, I'll write the check. And I reserve the right to coach you about what that is, but that we'll learn. Either we will blatantly install everything that you just did, or we will coach you along the ways of why. But what I want them to be is be opinionated, because you're opinionated anyways, but just own it. Then, because we have a sequence, where does it fit in the sequence? And then it's super simple to tell the truth at that point. That's what it looks like. And folks, the team that we have now is fully embrace it. We've been able to articulate it better before they join the team. And so that's what they're doing. And so we're using language like, what's your opinion on that?
Sure. And so speaking to the business owners, the leaders, ourselves, that we're running the companies, where does it go off the rails, Dan? What should we be looking for? Telltale signs, the red flags that hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah, gosh, we went off the rails. I should have seen it. It was right there in front of me. I missed it. What should we know? What can you talk to us about that? Coach us through that.
So what I would say is not having real-time interaction with reality, with the marketplace, with the community.
And can you give us an example of that?
So I'll give you an example when you don't have it. Is when we're fortunate enough that people just send us money no matter what we do. And every sort of successful company can get to that place, right? Where you've been so great in your past and you are so good in your present, you don't actually have to go out and talk to people anymore. And at some point some of us live 2 seconds in that moment, and some of us get to live 200 years, but no one gets to live forever. I think that's the telltale. So what the language that we use, and the first person that I sort of hold responsible for us having that COVID baby called Sales Sidekick is a guy named John. I won't use his last name. He can remain anonymous. But he said, Dan, I have to pay you for what you're doing. He was the guy that convinced us to do this, just like what we talked about. When the marketplace tells you, you got to take money for it, that's a good idea. John used the language of listening. So we go out and listen. So our community development team tracks their key metric, their KPI is minutes listened in the community. Listened, not talking. And we tell everybody we record everything we do. You can ask us not to, and we won't record, but we tell you we record everything. We record everything we do. And because we're systems people, in case we're smart, we want to make sure we can capture it. And so we actually we did an hour-long phone call. In the hour-long phone call, we were listening this many minutes. That's the metric, not sales, not any of that other stuff. That's what it starts to look like. It's wild. But if you've got a system then to process that data and turn it into information and get some knowledge, and get from the knowledge, you get some understanding, and then maybe even play it into some wisdom, then you can really start to create value for a marketplace or a community.
So Dan, let me get this straight. So one of your KPIs is not how long a meeting is, but what percentage of the time that you're listening, and you must have a minimum threshold. And I take it the strategy here, talk less, listen more, play it back after the meeting is done, and maybe you miss something, put that all down in your notes, but you're looking for potential pain points, areas perhaps where the company's dropping the ball, or you might be able to help them. Am I understanding that?
Yes. So give me an idea. And again, it's all tied together. So we will start a listening tour with an opinion, right, of some sort. And then to put it in sequences, well, let's go confront reality. And so say for the sake of argument, we are working with somebody who is concerned with product marketing managers. So we would start based on the client that we're working with. They would tell us what they think about. It's okay, that's cool. That's an opinion. Then we go out and listen to them, and we talk, and we'd ask them some questions, and then we would form an opinion based on what we heard about what they really think about. And if you talk to 20 of those people, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, geez, these are where all the common pain points are. And if you talk to 20 people across 4 different companies, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, well, maybe this is a systemic problem with PMMs in general. It's not super hard to find out what these problems are. And here's the other thing is people love to talk about themselves. And so they end the call. And most of the time, if we've done our part well, they feel great. And you repeat back to them what they think they're fantastic. And so then we usually end the call with something along the lines of, hey, we learned a lot. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. If we could, we'd love to double back with you and report back to you what we've learned in these other conversations. Would you be receptive for us to share our findings with you? And that one depends. There's people that they're almost always very gracious to share. I'd say we don't have hard numbers on this, but my experience when I was directly in front of it is probably about 1/3 of the people say yes. And then you get to come back and test your findings. And all we're doing is we're going to just stay in conversation and listening to the community that we serve, because that's what a community development team does. So we model that. We have an intentional demonstration that we first do with the client, and then we coach the client so they can do it for themselves. And then that's just what you do.
But really, I mean, talk less, listen more. People love talking about themselves. To me, it strikes me like thunder or lightning. It's How to Win Friends, Influence People. Dale Carnegie, classic book. So really, it sounds like what your system is doing. It's deliberately systematizing, as the saying goes, common sense that isn't so common.
And this is another standard disclaimer, which I hope I said last time. And it's, I have not figured out a single thing. Not a single thing. I have 9 restraints. Number 5 is don't be arrogant, copy off the smartest kid in class. Like not the only thing that I could pseudo take credit for is I make some connections, but they are other people's wisdom. There's not a single, other than just curating or sequencing, but this is all stuff, other people's information. All stuff that we know to be true, stuff that's survived for thousands of years. Yeah.
Great example. It doesn't have to be original. You don't have to be the first person to invent it. You can take what others have done, make it your own, make it better along the way. Yeah. Maybe you're already doing this. Perhaps you've thought about this, but is there a book in the works with your system just to get that out there? Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So I would say certainly by the end of the calendar year, it'll be out. We're hoping it'll be sooner than that because folks like it. And they're like, and what's also ironic, because I think I mentioned this previously, systems guy in general, I think the universe is a system. I think the universe is a full system. I try to fit myself to that system. So consequently, I report up. And it's ironic that the boss, whoever's running the system, has made me the person to present this because as an individual, I can get super pushy, but when we design systems, we design them really well. And then we hire people that can execute that. So as an individual, I suffer from all the things that we talk about, but as a creator and as a guy who puts systems on gray boards that eventually we turn into companies, we design them in ways that are consistent with universal law, for sure.
Well, Dan, you'll have to come back. When that book comes out, we'll have to have you back, talk us through the book, and we'll put it out there, get the community reading it and prospering from it. And really, you've given us the big picture overview. Each one of those areas could easily be an episode in and of itself. I'm wondering if I could just put you on the spot and ask, is there a story that you can share just to highlight, Jeffrey, this company came to me and it was XYZ dollars and this wasn't happening and that wasn't happening.
Yep.
And then started working with them and ABC months later, boom, here's where things went. Anything that comes to mind?
I think the one that would come to mind that would be the one that I would rabbit hole the least on is try to respect people's privacy and all that good stuff. We're still working with a professional services provider. And so they sell professional services to professional people. And they were a rainmaker, wildly successful rainmaker, a highly honorable, nice, small, dedicated team, and doing just fine, but felt like they could do more. And they were, as an individual, and when they were talking to people, they were honorable, but they were definitely doing some traditional push marketing and lots of email campaigns and all that stuff. And so we started working together, and we are continuing to encourage them. We're mid-process, but I think I feel very comfortable saying that in very, very short order, the rainmaker's perspective has gone from, I have to be the one person that closes every one of these accounts to being, I can be his word, not mine, the shepherd of not only my business, but the community that you're helping me develop.
Wow.
That's what it looks like. And this was a guy that was pretty happy and certainly is a man of deep faith, good guy, but he's found a much higher calling and was not exactly in the basement when we met him. That's what it looks like.
That sounds really exciting with what you're working on behind the scenes and getting that there. And we're going to put all these things in the show notes of people towards the end of this. We'll get the links and people will be able to point and click and get that out there. But let me ask you this, Dan. So someone has now internalized your system. You've taught them what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. It sounds obvious, but I don't think it is so obvious because you're right. We get this social programming. It puts us off the right path and we're really all these red herrings and we're going down the wrong path, trying to do all the wrong things, trying to get the right results. When you get us back to center with your system, what can we expect in terms of business results, mindset? What's that looking like? Yeah,
so because we keep it real. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're working on that's the next thing coming up. What I realized in working with these incredibly gracious people, because to work with us that early was incredibly gracious. I always say I reserve the right to learn more than you. We realized that we needed individual training. Because, right? And so we started this thing called Intentional Sidekick. And we're through a couple rounds of testing with really gracious folks that were making mistakes at full speed, which is restraint number 9, by the way. But because where we'd like to get to is we'd say, look, if this sounds interesting to you, here's some individual training for you. And this will either speak to your heart and you'll think it's great, or you'll think we're totally crazy. And either way, I think we've served you. You know which way you're supposed to go. If you got that individually, then you might have a little bit more fortitude to do this as a business. I think that's ultimately the route that we're going to take, despite that isn't the route that we walked. What I saw, how the businesses were acting were similar to how the business people were acting, is there was no intentionality, right? Or very little intentionality. What there was is everyone was just reacting, right? And so it's like, look, we have to slow the game down enough that we can be intentional. And so I unfortunately can't claim to not know what I've been doing for the last 25 years. It doesn't mean I've executed purposely. I mean, it just means that I thought it was a good idea, or I knew I was being selfish one way or another, right? And so, but having that is an incredible book of reference for me to be a little bit more intentional all the time. And it also provides a massive repository for learning. So ideally what we're going to get to is, so how our companies are arranged now is we do 4-day work weeks. The company shuts down for 2 weeks, 2 different times, because we believe in oscillation, because we're a system. We have things like, it's called the Sidekick Oscillation Time Away Program, which you're essentially, you and your team decide how much time you're going to take away from work. We encourage, by the time you add it all up, we're asking you to basically not be here for 9 weeks a year.
Wow.
Because we want people to be on fire when they're here. And but we've designed a system that can support that level. And that's, I think, the opportunity that business people have, is we have a chance to design a system that can produce that. And I'm not kidding. We do Zoom calls a lot. That's what most of our stuff is. We've got people in offices, but we're mostly a virtual company. We very rarely ever do face-to-face client meetings because based on where they're at. People beam on these calls. If you're in a community development and your job is to go out, your purpose is to create value in every interaction and to give away things for fun and for free with no strings attached, that's a pretty cool job to have.
I would say so, yes.
And when the other person finally figures out that there isn't some angle or whatever, that like literally the nuthead that you're working for just thinks that we're going to learn enough in that interaction that we'll be okay in the long run, then they are like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? We have a lot of fun at what we're doing, despite the fact that we're trying to get some real serious results. I'm on a mission to redeem the word, the place, and the way we do it. That's what we're trying to do with this system that we're talking about.
We're going to start wrapping up here, but at the end, and we'll put this in the show notes for people to be able to reach out and have you coach them, have learn the system, ask questions. We'll definitely put that there. But wow, there's just so much to unpack here. Love what you're doing. You're bringing us back to basics of where we always should have been, but unintentionally we've been redirected in the wrong direction. And so you're really doing some incredible work. And thank you for being just so out there and willing to, hey, let's try it on ourselves, see if it works. And look at this, it's working. Let's bring it to other people. Let's be the change makers out there, which is really at the heart of what we all do. So a heartfelt thank you for that. So Dan, let's put a pause on things. And you answered this question before. It's been a little bit of time. You've changed. I've changed. The world has changed. I'm sure we'll have a different answer. Can't wait to hear it. But I'll just remind you, I'll set up the context for the question. So think of the movie Back to the Future. And in the movie, you have that magical DeLorean car that can take you to any point in time. So Dan, here's the fun part. It's tomorrow morning. You look outside the window. There it is, the DeLorean car. Not only is it sitting there, curbside, doors open, waiting for you to hop on in. So you hop on in, and you're now going to go back to any point of the younger Dan. As a young child, teenager, younger adult, whatever point in time that would be. What are you telling your younger self in terms of life wisdom or lessons? Or, hey, Dan, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
So I would still have the same answer, which I'm going to repeat, but I'll try to actually answer it. But I just got to go on record because of what I said before. I don't want to be anywhere of that other where I'm at. I really do. And that's the best part about what an intentional life is. Like, you get to love where you are, but to play along, because I don't want to be, but that truly is that's answer one. If I could be smarter than I am, if I got to be smarter than I am, I would go back to the 24-year-old and say, look, you are inspired because these people that you work for are giving you authority to try all these ideas. And outside forces are going to try to figure out why you are great or what you are. You are a systems guy. And what you need to do is focus on systems and then find other people who are communicators and leaders and all sorts of other people to take your crazy ideas and package them in ways that are digestible for normal folks. That's what I would go back and do. And fortunately, we've got surrounding ourselves with some of those people now, but it would have been way more helpful earlier in the process. So I've been misdiagnosed as to what I've been for a couple times.
Clearly, you're learning, you're making a difference, you're doing all the right things.
Restraint number 9, don't wait on perfection, make mistakes at full speed, and guilty as charged, for sure.
Done is better than perfect. And so Dan, for our listeners who want to reach out to you, they have questions, they want to learn more, where's the best place online they can find you?
So I think LinkedIn, I'm Dan T. Rogers on LinkedIn. If you message me there, I will respond. Terrific. And if you want to talk, I want to talk. I reserve the right to learn more than you. We'd love to be helpful. I think people reach out on a fairly regular basis. I think they're blown away when the crazy dude that was on the podcast shows up and it's all about them. And there's time. And I've met with people. Some have turned into clients. We ran maybe half a dozen times and nothing happened. And that was totally fine. We will demonstrate what we talked about in reality. I just want to be helpful. And if we figure out how to better articulate this, we can redeem work. I'm just trying to play my part on that squad to redeeming work, the word, the place, and the way we do it.
Terrific. Dan, it's an official wrap. A heartfelt thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights. And as we say here at Deep Wealth, please continue to prosper and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great seeing you.
The Deep Wealth experience was definitely a game changer for me.
This course is one of the best investments you will ever make because you will get an ROI of 100 times that. Anybody who doesn't go through it will lose millions.
If you don't have time for this program, you'll never have time for a successful liquidity.
I mean, it was the best value of any business course I've ever taken. the money was very well spent.
Compared to when we first began, today I feel better prepared, but in some respects, maybe less prepared, not because of the course, but because the course brought to light so many things that I thought we were on top of that we need to fix.
I 100% believe there's never a great time for a business owner to allocate extra hours into his or her week or day. So it's an investment that will yield results today. I thought I will reap the benefit of this program in 3 to 5 years down the road. But as soon as I stepped forward into the program, my mind changed immediately.
There was so much value in the experience that the time I invested paid back so much for the energy that was expended.
The Deep Wealth experience compared to other programs is the top. What we learned is very practical. Sometimes you learn stuff that is great to learn, but you never use it. The stuff we learned from Deep Wealth experience, I believe is going to benefit us both.
I've done an executive MBA. I've worked for billion-dollar companies before. I've worked for smaller companies before I started my business. I've been running my business successfully now for getting close to a decade. We're on a growth trajectory. Reflecting back on the Deep Wealth, I knew less than 10% what I know now. Maybe close to 1% even.
Hands down the best program in which I've ever participated. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've been in other mastermind groups, gone to many seminars, workshops, conferences, retreats, read books. This was so different. I haven't had an experience that's anything close to this in all the years that we've been at this. It's 5-star, A+.
I would highly recommend it to any super busy business owner out there. And Deep Wealth is an accurate name for it. This program leads to deeper wealth and happier wealth, not just deeper wealth. I don't think there's a dollar value that could be associated with such an experience and knowledge that could be applied today and forever.
Are you leaving millions on the table? Please visit www.deepwealth.com/success to learn more. If you're not on my email list, you'll want to be. Sign up at www.deepwealth.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, if it added value, if you walked away with some new insights and strategies, please leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. Reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, and continue to create content that you'll enjoy. And as we wrap up this episode, as always, please stay healthy and safe.